Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to this week's Commanders Countdown. Not a whole lot of news this week. There was some kind of not so great news in the Anheuser-Busch company dropped the sponsorship with Washington. I did cover that, or we cover that in another segment if you're interested to hear about that. It's a little more of a negative segment, but you can definitely go and check that out if you want. Other than that, the main news, obviously we did cover Carson Wentz last week a little bit. But I figure, we can talk about him a little bit more as time goes on and you look more into the player, your opinions can change. Because last week I know I was kind of initially
we were both kind of more on the fence, yeah.
Yeah, like seeing his stats and all that, you're like, oh man, 27-7, like that sounds, it looks good. And then I read these articles about his personality issues, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like but you don't know what's true. And right. The videos that Washington's posted of like Carson going to DC and various different things, I am optimistic. I'm hoping, given the talent that he has, that he'll be good for us. And the cost we got him for was, extremely low.
Hard to beat.
2 third-rounders, which one might convert to a second-rounder based on his snap totals. So, which is a lot like his Indianapolis contract, where depending how much he played, how much he would make. So, I'm happy with the pickup overall now. I mean, obviously everything takes time to set in a bit. With the whole Commander's name. I'm still not completely used to that, but obviously as the months go on and the years go on, that's going to become normal. So.
Yeah, and then I think you got to like where you're at as far as the position goes. I mean, I remember we talked about it when we were filming the first time around, that you got to feel better going into this next season. With
your depth
absolutely. Being Wentz and Heineke, rather than last year where it was Fitzpatrick and Heineke.
Well, we didn't really get to see what Fitzpatrick could have done.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I would say. Like, it would have been nice to at least see him play 3 or 4 games to have a judgment on his ability.
True.
But you are right, though. Wentz does seem like he is overall a better quarterback.
I think he's got a better ceiling than I like Fitz.
Yeah, he's also younger. Fitz is pretty old. Carson's, I think he's like 32. I'm totally guessing.
Hopefully Carson stays off.
No, actually, I think he's still in his 20s. I think he's like 28, 29.
Yeah, he's like 28. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, he's not that old. So that's good. He's got a really strong arm, which obviously that's one of the knocks
Huge
on
arm.
Heineke.
Yeah.
I know Heineke doesn't have the biggest arm. He doesn't have a noodle arm like a lot of people like to sit there. I really hate those people that just shit on Heineke.
Yeah, the man's an NFL quarterback. Nobody in the NFL's got a noodle arm. Like, he can make NFL throws.
That kid has the most heart of it doesn't matter. Yes, he has a ceiling. He was 20 for 15 I think last season. Nothing spectacular, but also not completely terrible. He obviously he could start for a team that needs a quarterback, which is what we needed, and he did get us decently far. But I am definitely happier to have Carson Wentz in there and to have Heineke still there as a backup. I hope we keep Heineke for years to come as a backup, because if anything does happen to the quarterback we have, we know that he is a solid enough player to win us some games.
And honestly, what I would like to see more is potentially the option for using him in like a Taysom Hill or like a Mariota package like the Raiders.
I agree. When he's not the starter and he doesn't have to worry about his he obviously needs to be careful and not get hurt, but you know what I'm saying? He can take a little more risks.
Yeah,
and that too, yeah. Taysom Hill has always been one of my favorite players to watch. Not when he was starting quarterback, because that shit sucked, but when he came in on the specialty plays, I never liked the Saints and never liked Drew Brees, but every time Taysom Hill come out, I'd be like, yeah, Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill's an exciting player, and those guys are exciting to watch. So, I would like if they added the wrinkle. I also am excited because the more we looked into it, obviously, we've seen conflicting reports where several teammates have come out and they've really stuck up for him. And
that's right. I forgot you had mentioned that. Yeah, I forgot you had said that.
It was Darius Leonard, their star linebacker, and Jonathan Taylor, their top running back. They're like, Carson's my guy. There's also reports that Frank Reich, the Colts coach, called Ron Rivera and said that this was, that he stood by Carson and everything. And I think it was more Jim Irsay, the Colts owner, that was wanting to maybe move on from that.
Well, some of these, the articles that I was reading, these weren't as of just in Indianapolis. This is things from over the years. Like, it wasn't just like this was one, just recently that this happened. There's been... But, obviously you have to take things, what you read, and take it with a grain of salt. It may or may not be as true. Maybe he was in an organization that wasn't treating him that well. You never know. But I am optimistic at this point. He is our quarterback. There's really no point in sitting there and trying to, dwell on the negative aspects that might be there.
Right. Yeah.
At this point, it's just, look for the best. And given his stats and the type of player he can be, I'm pretty happy about it. And given the cost, good Jesus, the cost we got him for was just... If we had
some
gotten
of these
Deshaun
quarterbacks
Watson
are-
or Russell
yeah.
Wilson for all
Yeah.
those picks, I don't know how I'd feel about that. I don't know. It would really, it'd make me really nervous because it would depend on how the next season goes. If we didn't
Really
get into
taking
the
everything
NFC
on that
Championship
season.
at
Yeah,
least,
exactly. Yeah.
And that's terrifying. Like, I don't feel like we're in the point to do that right now. Like, and a person like Carson Wentz with the weapons that we have, I think we could get it done.
Carson's a guy that a couple seasons ago was in the running for MVP. With the
Exactly.
Eagles.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I
So,
think
yeah.
it's a good pickup, and obviously that's been discussed that you guys are picking up his entire $28 million contract, which that's still, even as far as quarterback contracts go, nothing crazy.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that number. I mean, given his stats last year and his play in the past, he deserves that. And it's not like Deshaun Watson's $46 million, like you said, or Aaron's
Or
50.
Aaron's, yeah.
It's like it's about what Jimmy makes, and Carson's probably a better quarterback than Jimmy. So,
I'd say so.
so to take 28 mil, I'm completely fine with that. Like as I've processed it a bit more, I'm like, okay, you know what? Given the options, it really kind of almost is the best option. Like the front office there kind of made a smart choice. I know when Deshaun, the day after this happened and he was off all his legal issues, I was kind of mad. But now in hindsight, I'm like, no. I don't want three first round picks for the next. No, I don't want to do any of that. I'm good with this move now. I'm happy with it. As long as Carson's not some kind of locker room cancer like some of those articles I was reading, then I'm completely happy with it. But we will see.
I would agree. And then, this next guy.
And some other good news.
Yeah.
Great news in this one. Thought he was gone, losing J.D. McKissick.
Oh, God. That would have
Thought the Bills had signed him to a set. I don't know about the most devastating, but it would have been devastating. I was very sad that day.
So far. I mean, I think versus
Oh,
the
yes,
players that
okay,
they've lost
that's
so
true.
far, yeah.
But yeah, he was going to sign
agents they have,
he was going to sign a 2-year, $7 million deal with the Bills. And then within the next 24 hours, Washington apparently offered to match that offer, and J.D. McKissick opted to stay, which is fantastic. Especially because there's always that talk, or at least from some shitty fans, it's like no one wants to come to Washington. And it's like, well, he clearly just chose to stay in Washington. But then you can look at Brandon Sheriff, who took less money to go to the Jags instead of staying with Washington. So you never know. But Brandon Sheriff is also part of the old regime, and I do feel like there might be some mentality to maybe get rid of some of the players that were there prior to,
I could see
the name change and stuff like that. But
I mean, but J.D. McKissick, great pickup. I mean, obviously, you guys, he missed 6 games last year, but he still appeared in 11, started 3, carried the ball 48 times for 212 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and had 43 catches. This is where he really came in. Paid dividends.
Yeah, his pass catching ability.
397 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. So, great to have him back because obviously there's, Jarrett Patterson's great, Antonio Gibson's great, but I don't think that anybody does.
We need someone that has the pass catching ability like him. He has that explosive ability to him. There's been, I can't give you like what team it was or where, but there's numerous plays from last season that I can remember where he just goes off.
The Falcons where he won the game.
Was that the one where he ran 60
where
yards?
Rolled out and had to throw it back.
Yes, that was. Man,
it wasn't like 60, but it was like 40 yards on the last play of the game. And then he made the jump, the dive at the end zone and got it.
He had a couple more too, but that was definitely the best one.
Yeah. I mean that was one of his best plays. But yeah, I mean good to have him back. Obviously, he's an electric player and definitely somebody that you want back.
Yeah, we also got Cam Sims back, which I'm happy with that. He's done some good for us. He's not. I feel like we can develop him, more as time goes on, hopefully. But he's also been good on special teams.
Exactly, his role on special teams, and then he did add 15 catches last season, 2 receiving touchdowns. So interesting to see what will end up happening. I think that he can be an asset vertically if they start throwing deeper down the field.
Which with Carson Wentz, that seems like a complete possibility. So.
Yeah, I mean.
And imagine Terry and Wentz, man. Terry and Wentz.
Yeah, hopefully Scott Turner starts dialing more downfield vertical.
I think he will because I think last year with Heineke as the quarterback, he was tailoring it around what he could do. Tailoring it for Taylor, around what his ability level was.
Exactly. Yeah, I would agree with that. And then they got to replace some of the guys that they lost, because they did lose both of their guards, losing Scherf, obviously, to the Jags, as we mentioned earlier. But they did, and then they also lost Flowers. But they got Andrew Norwell, former Jaguars and Carolina Panthers. So another Panther.
And they got him for what, about half the cost that Eric Flowers would have been for 2 seasons instead of 1?
So Flowers would have been on the next season on the books for $10 million. And they got Norwell on a 2-year deal with $10 million over 2 seasons, $4.7 million guaranteed. So, and Norwell.
That's probably why they released him, is because they needed to save some money, and to get someone like him. I mean, as I said, I'm not too familiar with him, but you were saying he is a pretty solid player.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that really hasn't missed a lot of times or missed a lot of games in his career. I mean, last year he started 17 to 17 games. There's really
that's always great.
There's only been 1, 2, 3. Of his 8 seasons, there's only really been 3 seasons where he's missed considerable time with injury. So he's more or less been reliable and stayed healthy.
That's good.
Which is definitely what you want. Look for him to replace either Flowers or Scherf, depending on whether they put him at left guard or right guard. That remains to be seen. They made another addition along the offensive line, signing backup center Tyler Larson, re-signing on a 1-year deal. So he started 3 games last year after Chase Roulier went down. He was one of the 4 centers.
I'm happy with them bringing him back. He did well with what he had to do. Just getting thrown in and having to start.
He was definitely the second best center they had. So good to see them get some.
We need that depth. Definitely glad to see that. And then we also kept defensive back Bobby McCain, which is definitely one of the best re-signings here. I mean, obviously J.D. McKissick is probably my favorite, but
it was good to get him back. I mean, he had a great season coming over from Miami. I mean, he had 4 interceptions to lead the team. I think he had 1 interception returned for a touchdown against the Giants in the last game of the season. I feel like, if I remember correctly.
I think you are correct.
But he's back on a 2-year, $11 million contract, so $5.5 million per season. Obviously, with the expected loss of Landon Collins, it's probably going to be a lot more of Bobby McCain and Cam Curl as the safeties. I know last year they were trying to do like a 3 safety sets before they ultimately moved Landon to linebacker. So
I imagine we might pick up a safety in the draft later in the draft. I think
I could see that for depth.
Because I mean, Landon did get switched to linebacker. I also think maybe a linebacker could be a later pickup as well because of that.
Yeah, I mean, and as I know we've discussed personally, what they might do at 11. And I think that we're both in agreement that it seems, they got Norwell. He's going to fill one of the guard positions. So
but
it's very likely
got the other one
guard.
Or receiver, because they need somebody to pair with Terry. But really, what matters is like what they can get in free agency before the draft. If they could have picked up someone like Amari Cooper to pair with Terry, then I wouldn't be so confident that they're going to go with a wide receiver, so early. But if it continues to be the way it is now, with Terry really being the only number 1. I would expect they would probably go with receiver and then maybe a guard second.
Good receivers are like Amari's off the table now. Obviously there's still OBJ, but you figure he's going to come back in this half of the season.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good pick.
Robert Woods just got traded to the Rams or to the Titans. So I mean, Allen Robinson just got signed by the Rams. So
there's not a lot of options left.
There's not a lot of good receivers. Like all the good receivers are pretty much getting snatched up. There's still a few out there, but. I mean, I would look for them to probably attack that position in the draft, unless they're confident
I would say so.
that De'Ami Brown could really be that number 2, but we haven't seen enough.
Maybe. I really think just based on what we've seen last year, they probably will go with receiver, and then their second pick would probably be a guard, or maybe vice versa, depending on the caliber of player that's available at the time. They might flip that, but I would think those would be like the first 2.
Player available, yeah.
Right. Because if they're not going to go quarterback, at some point it's just like, just take the best player that's there.
They could still go quarterback.
They could.
On who's available.
I don't think so. I really don't think so. Given the way that this draft class looks, I'd be really surprised. I mean, we got Heineke, amazing, solid backup. Couldn't ask for a better backup in my opinion. And then we got Wentz, who we don't know how he's going to do, but I'm optimistic about it. So, and he should be able to do better than Taylor did. So, that's something in itself.
Yeah, I think he's got a pretty high upside, so we'll have to follow that and see how it goes. And then also just to really quickly mention the guys that they've lost so far. I know we kind of brought up, Flowers already, But Flowers was released after a really good season. I mean, he started 16 games, and I mean this is the second time in a couple seasons he's been released. He was on the team in 2019 after the Jay Gruden era, and got released after that season when the new regime came in. Came back, got released again. But he was on the.
That's odd that they did that. They released him and brought him back and then released him again.
It's like come back, it'll be different this time.
And then they're like, nah, fuck you, bro. Like,
get out of here. Get the hell out of here.
But they also released Matt Ionidis, which I know a lot of people are probably somewhat sad to see him go. He's been with the team for 6 seasons. But I think the reason that they did this is because it created $16.9 million in available cap space.
Right, yeah, so between that and Flowers' contract, they got out of about $17 million.
Right. So I think that was probably one of the main reasons for that.
Which you figure a lot of that probably went directly to the Carson Wentz.
I guess, but they had a lot of cap space anyway. I mean, they weren't paying a quarterback much, so I feel like I mean, obviously some of it did, but they might be trying to bolster up other positions. Maybe they think they can, like, I mean, with the Andrew Norwell, they picked him up for half the price of Flowers, so they're trying to make
a lot of good players out there.
They're trying to make moves around and maybe get rid of players that are going to cost them too much, and then able to pick up other good players that would cost them less, so they can invest in other things. That's at least what I would think, but you never know how that's going to work out for you. But
yeah, that's true. And then also as far as the defensive line depth goes, I mean, Ionidis had 2.5 sacks. He's a former starter. Last few years, he's been more of a depth player, but I mean, he's a guy that's had 8.5 sacks in the past. They also got rid of Tim Settle, another
that's unfortunate. He was good for us. That one
He's going over to Buffalo, so
they got one guy from us.
Yeah, they didn't get JD, but they got Tim Settle, and Ionidis is going to the Colts.
Oh, okay. And then there's obviously
I'm sorry. I missed. He's going to the Panthers. That was my mistake.
Okay.
Yeah,
I got you.
So the Panthers are getting one back. And then go ahead about DeShazer.
Yeah, DeShazer obviously not coming back, safety, due to the car accident that he was involved in that resulted in the death of his girlfriend at the time. So I don't think he's going to be back. But yeah, that's about all we got for you this week. I'm sure there'll be some new free agency stuff in the next week to come as we get closer to the draft. It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, once all the signings are done in free agency, then that's when I get more into the draft. You know, when everyone starts doing these mock drafts 2-3 months before, it's like, you guys are idiots. Like, you gotta wait until you see what the team. Yeah, you gotta see what they have after free agency, and then you make the mock drafts, because then they make more sense. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like I bet if somebody like had quarterback on Cleveland's depth chart,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's so many. Yeah, free agency throws a wrench into anything. So when I started seeing the mock drafts, I was like, dude, you guys, come on.
Every mock draft for the Broncos had to have had the Broncos at a quarterback until they got Russell. So
exactly.
It's like now. So yeah.
And how many people wasted how many hours making mock drafts for the Broncos drafting quarterback? I'm really curious. Like, how many people did that?
This guy.
Yeah, this guy 0. Yeah, if I do a mock draft, it's like 1 or 2, and it's like I said, it's going to be really close to when the draft starts. Like, it's going to be the week of.
We might do one for the folks here, but why don't you put in the comments who you think the Commanders are going to take at 11? We'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I am curious, definitely. But yeah, catch us next week. Hopefully, we'll have some news. May not be that much because it is the off season, but hopefully there'll be some more free agency signings to cover.
Yep. Take it easy.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.